everyone. Welcome back to the Leeds United News and Views podcast. This is a matchday review of the Liverpool game and a preview of the Newcastle United game coming up shortly in the next few days. First of all, what the fuck is all I have to say about that game in particular. I'm going to pass it on to the expert panels of the other three uglies, including myself. But first of all, the talking point right now is literally, it is now 7:09 p.m. Australian time, and the announcement has just been made in the last 20 minutes. Pascal Struijk red card is being upheld. Let's cross over to Chris, first of all, for his thoughts on that bullshit call.
Yeah, I don't know what the FA are seeing that everyone else around the world, including Liverpool supporters and professional pundits, didn't.
Even Harvey.
I should do the right thing. First of all, you know, our thoughts go out to him, and
absolutely, and
we hope he makes a speedy return to the game. Obviously, you hate to see injuries like that.
Yes.
Class Act took to Instagram after the fact and said that he thought that it was a genuine challenge, that it was an accident, nothing more. Said himself he didn't believe that it was a red.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, once again, I'm just not sure what the FA are seeing that everyone else isn't.
Agreed. Do you have anything to add to that, Nickson?
I would have to say, their coach coming out of the box, influencing.
Yeah. Yes.
Like Klopp should not have gotten out of the box.
Yeah.
No.
He shouldn't. He should be
pretty
banned
sure that's a breach. Like there should be an investigation into that more so than the red card.
Yeah, I actually think he shouldn't be allowed to attend for a while. Like,
that's a very good point, because there are rules that say that the coach has to stay within their designated area. And if you watch the replay, I don't advise you watch the replay, but if you do watch the replay, things don't really start kicking off until he starts
talking to the referee,
getting animated, sort of thing,
and starts talking to the referee out of his box.
Yes.
Exactly, and I heard that there were things being said to him from the stands, and he was saying things back to the stands. It wasn't a particularly good atmosphere around that time of the game.
No.
But nonetheless, I think we can all agree that that Klopp acted unprofessionally unprofessionally given the circumstances. He was obviously concerned for the health and for the well-being of his player, but the situation was definitely escalated by his reaction.
Absolutely. And crossing over to Jason real quick to add, if you've got anything to put towards that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that was one of the first things, like Nickson said, was that I mean, watching the game, when that tackle first went in, I got excited. I thought that's a strong challenge. Away we go. We're starting to sort of wrestle our way back.
Yeah, I thought, fuck, let's go. You know.
Yeah, and then
he didn't get up, and I was like, oh shit.
The game stopped.
8 minutes.
So the game stopped, and I'm sort of going, what's going on? With that tackle, I think was technically perfect, aside from the fact, obviously, his trailing leg took out Harvey Elliott, and like we said, like Chris said, it's really unfortunate, and you feel really sorry for Harvey Elliott that happened.
Absolutely.
But I think it's one of those things. It's between a rock and a hard place in the way that it's just a hard one. That I guess the punishment has been left there because if he doesn't get a punishment for that, then there might be a lot of trouble, going forward. So I guess they're sort of stuck in a way of they're thinking about it emotionally, and the fact that a player's been injured from that tackle, albeit it was a really good tackle and just a freak accident. And I don't know if you remember, I mean, Liam Cooper did a similar tackle, which was technically perfect. It just shows that sort of fine margin between obviously winning the ball and not. I definitely didn't like Nickson said, I definitely didn't like that Klopp got way too involved. And I get it was an emotional time, but I really didn't like that he promoted that sort of, that angst, pushing for a send-off. I mean, you'd see the result and you go, he should be sent off. But on the replay, I mean, the tackle was.
If they'd have gone to VAR at that point in time, which they could have gone to VAR, he gets off.
Yeah, well, they've just looked at him on the floor, and you know what? I think probably when you look at it,
and there was no replay shown, by the way, when it was live, there was no replay shown to us.
Yeah, I mean, you feel sorry. I feel sorry for Harvey Elliott, but I also feel sorry for Pascal in the way that he was sort of ostracized and made to feel like he'd gone out, blatantly gone, and he's caused a horrific injury. He has caused a horrific injury, but it's one of those things that he's not that type of player.
No, he's not, and that'll play on his mind.
Yeah, but that being said, I guess Bielsa won't be the type of person that'll let him hold on to that. He'll sort of settle him down, I think, and hopefully
look, we've got a game next week. Well, I mean, he doesn't, but as in Leeds do.
Yeah. So
absolutely, Nickson, do you have anything to add to that?
I was going to say more to that point, like on how disappointed, like within himself. Yeah, himself up about it, but you could just see in his face when he got the card, he was just gutted, and I don't think it was right. I think it should have gone straight to VAR. Like, definitely, I've seen like tackles that are way more contentious than that go straight to VAR. That one just needs to go to VAR straight away as well. Like, there has to be a standard where, oh, that looks iffy, straight to VAR. Don't, like, you call it straight away.
Either make a straight decision with the card or go straight to VAR. No in between.
What you said, yeah.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, there was 3 goals, and unfortunately, as Nickson said, 3 very great goals in that game. The first of which coming to, in my opinion, the scum of the earth, Mo Salah. I would rather literally lick the toe of a homeless person than say he's the best player, but he's one of the best, unfortunately. And it hurts me to say that.
Why do you feel so passionate about that, CJ?
Honestly, he's just... Let me put it this way.
Let's not take this down a racial road.
No. It's not racial. It's not racial at all. Let me put it this way. I would not be surprised if there's some reach arounds happening with the referees and Salah before the games. That's just an opinion for anyone who's listening. It is not fact. I am not trying to slander anyone. I'm for my own protection. I'm probably going to cut that bit out, but that's definitely like there's. Let me put it this way. The refs are paying him to let him score. He's not paying the refs. It's that bad how much he gets away with.
All right.
Yeah.
I was a bit upset when I saw him get player of the match. Like when it popped up as a notification on my phone, I was like, oh, number 1, CJ will be gutted. But number 2, nah. Yeah. And all the commentators could talk about were him and his 100th goal or Ronaldo.
I was going to say it was still fucking better than listening to about Ronaldo.
Like, they could just be like, we could be about to score, and like just as we're about to hit it in, they could do like a picture-in-picture of Ronaldo getting change, and they'll be like, oh wow, look at Ronaldo over there getting change. Isn't he wonderful?
And they lost to Young Boys this morning, so that's even better.
Mm-hmm. That was beautiful. A few people lost a few multis this morning. I'm glad.
Did you lose a multi today?
No, I didn't have one on.
On the topic
responsibly, guys.
On the topic of that first goal, I actually don't think it was really that good of a goal. The build-up was reasonably good, but if you look at the tracking, he was in the right place at the right time, which for a player worth as much as he's allegedly worth, upwards of £80 million, you would expect him to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
It was. And he didn't score. I hate to say it. It was very much a Patrick Bamford goal. It came out of the hard work of the people around him and some questionable defending.
Yeah, but if you'd ask Paddy the same question, you take 10, 12 goals of those type all day long. I mean, as strikers, it's putting yourself in the right positions, isn't it? And someone's got to be there.
I couldn't give a furry rat's ass if we scored 5 or 6 of that exact same goal every game.
Yep,
3 points is 3 points.
That's it. But unfortunately, those 3 points did not come to Leeds United this week. This week just gone, unfortunately. And each of us have had 2 players to watch, 2 different players for each of us. And maybe we can isolate maybe some reasoning why the 3 points didn't come to us this past week. And first of all, what a fucking segue that was. I'm so proud of that. Holy fuck. I'll edit that bit out. But yeah, we'll start obviously who was tasked with Meslier. And because obviously it's the goalkeeper, why not? And that was Nickson. You were tasked with Meslier and Cooper. What are your thoughts on how they tracked in that game?
Look, I'm always impressed with Melier. I might seem really, really, really biased, but he's always on the ball. He gives it 110%. But the goals that he let through were just too good, especially the last one. They were just so fast, so targeted. He just couldn't. He tried to get there, and you could see he was close enough. Like he had the intent there. He knew what he was going to do. He just couldn't pull it off.
Yeah.
And that, I hate to say it, they were good goals. So, yeah. What do you think about that one, Jason? Do you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, you know what? A lot of the time they say that a goalkeeper's only as good as his defense. And I tell you what, we make him work something ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like he commands his box really well. He makes save after save. He does it every game. But when you're conceding so many chances as a team, you can only do so much. So you're right that the goals were just really good, tidy finishes and really gave any keeper in the world probably minimal chance of saving it. So you're not wrong. Like you can only do so much. Yeah,
shit. And what about Cooper, Nickson?
Again, a wise man once said to me that Cooper's doing really well when you don't notice him because he's definitely holding down his position. And that's, I didn't notice him that much because obviously all the action was happening around the cards and up the front and stuff, but he held down his position perfectly. Again, he's also is only as strong as the players around him as well. But
he
in terms of his command of the ball, and he executed his role perfectly. And
let me put it this way. Obviously, there was a few players that definitely didn't play on song. In general, like with any loss, there's players that aren't playing in form, but there's always players who have a good individual game, even in a loss. And Cooper was one of those this game just gone. Chris, would you agree with that?
Probably not to the extent that you boys appear to be peddling that opinion. I think that he had a fairly Cooperish game. He started off with some fairly basic errors early on in the game when the pressure was on. He held his position down well, and you definitely couldn't say that he was the issue with why it was such a lackluster performance. But there were definitely some very Cooperish mistakes being made by him throughout. He's given away, for example, an incident that comes to mind. He's given away a carbon copy of exactly almost for the last 3 games in a row, the same professional foul 3 games in a row where the ball's coming at his man, and he's kind of trying to reach around the player to stop them from getting ahead. But in doing so, his arm collects with the player's body, and the free kick's obviously given. He's given away that exact same foul three of the last weeks, and he did it against Liverpool again. On the square ball, they touched on it briefly, and they said that it's a fairly basic reaction for a defender. But yeah, I don't feel that he had an outstanding game. But I also don't feel like he had an overly bad game. He had, in my opinion, a very Liam Cooper game.
That's fair enough, and a fair assessment on
to be fair to that, Chris, I really think that was his only mistake. I mean, he obviously, when he's come out for that ball, he's been turned. That's obviously a mistake, and he's had to give away the professional foul. But I do think that was probably his only mistake for the game. And he got that yellow card quite early on. So to ride a game and that tackle that he in the second half when he's chasing Mane, and it was a carbon copy of Pascal's minus the broken ankle, and he won the ball perfectly. I think after that, plus his positioning across that game, you'll notice when we start watching a few more games this year that he just seems to be in the right spot at times where the ball gets just passed to him. And I don't think that's got to do with partly to do with errors, but it happens too often for it to be uncommon. And I think as much as people, have a go at him and have an opinion that he might not cut the level, he actually, I thought, was pretty solid for the rest of that game. But obviously opinions vary and the rest of it, and that's fine. But yeah, I just thought,
No, fair, and you make some quality points. I guess in a perfect world where Leeds had a fully fit side, we had Koch back, we had Llorente back, we had Struijk back. In a world where in a world where Bielsa's got everyone to choose from, do you start him on the bench or do you start him over more established defenders? Defenders that aren't making the same mistake game in, game out.
You have to start him.
It's a good question. I think just he's the captain.
Yeah, it's like the glue. He holds the team together too.
Yeah.
If he's not captain, then definitely that topic comes up in conversation for sure. But if he is captain, which he is, unfortunately, it's that you start him when he's fit.
Yeah.
But we all know my opinion on who the captain should be, so we'll move on.
Yes, we do. And moving on, we'll actually cross over to you, Chris, for your two players of focus, which were Ayling and the debutant Dan James.
So I think Bill had a reasonable game. He had a quiet game in the sense where he didn't really do much, but he, like the argument for Cooper, he also didn't make that many overly egregious mistakes.
He didn't make as many mistakes as he did against Burnley. The one note I had of Luke Ayling throughout, he missed a very typical Luke Ayling goal. In where the ball's come into the box, he's in the right place at the right time. And usually in the past, and we've seen this with all of the great Luke Ayling goals, he middles the ball right into the top right or hand corner of the net and runs around with his hair down. He had a chance to do that, but this time he mistimed it and it came off his knee. And I remember watching it. This attempt was in the 43rd minute. I remember watching it and thinking, now would have been a bloody great time for a Luke Ayling goal. But yeah, apart from that, I don't think he really made that many mistakes. He wasn't really ever present like he sometimes is. But I think Luke Ayling had a somewhat acceptable game in the context of a 3-0 defeat. Yep.
Dan James, not really the debut I'm sure he had in mind. He came on and he was reasonably effective out wide. He was getting reasonable service. But by the time he came on, the game was at a point where it was fairly well dead and buried. It was at least a long way back for us. I think I'm waiting to see how he does against Newcastle. I think he'll get a better shot against Newcastle than he did against Liverpool. But I think his debut was not what we were expecting it to be, and I don't think it was certainly what he was expecting it to be.
No, that's fair. Honestly, very, very fair thoughts on that. Do you have anything to say about that, Jason?
Maybe just in terms of Luke Ayling, pretty serviceable game. I mean, the team performance wasn't there as a whole as what we've come to expect from Leeds, but I think Luke Ayling, there was a couple of times that I noticed that he's starting to give the ball away a little bit coming out of defence, where he's trying to, whether a worldy pass or the passes just start quite getting there. And that's the only thing that I noticed from Luke Ayling's game, was that, not that he didn't make any mistakes, apart from I noticed a couple of times that he stood out when he gave the ball away when we're in transition to move that ball forward. And that's the only real thing that I got, which is very un-Luke Ayling-like. But that's as much as I got from his game. So, I mean, apart from that, he was decent. That chance, obviously, it would have been nice for him to hit that top corner and take his shirt off and his hair down. That would have been nice, like Chris said. But another day, another game, maybe. But yeah, that's as much as I got about him.
No, that's fair enough, Jason, mate. We'll cross over to you, Nickson, in just a second. But Jason, mate, we'll stay on you for this minute. Your players, Firpo and Rafinha, how did they fare against Liverpool?
Yeah, look, I'll go with Firpo to start off with. I mean, he's obviously had a bit of a stop-start sort of affair with Leeds, so fine that he had COVID and just trying to work his way into the system. And you're seeing a lot of the training videos that he's trying to stick with Jack Harrison, obviously try to build that chemistry down that left side. Tough ask when you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold and Salah down that right side, both of them running up at you. Overall, he was serviceable. The things that I liked about him was that he stuck to his task at times and he got tackles in. You found that he stuck a leg in, and then Salah would recover the ball again. So he did make a few successful tackles, but they were still able to keep the ball. One thing that that worried me about him was that he did it a couple of times where he gave the ball away on the edge of the box. And Liverpool are a little bit like in the sense that when they win that ball back, they're on their bike and they're really damaging in that transition. So the one thing that scared me about him was that he sort of left us doing a little bit of heart in arse defending when he'd give the ball away on our attacking box, which is scary. So, but I think as time goes by and he obviously builds that chemistry with Jack Harrison and the system and everything, I think he'll be some player. I mean, he's only still young. I just sort of compare him to Alioski in the way that Alioski might not have been great defensively, but going forward, he hardly ever gave the ball away, and he'd often get those overlapping runs, and he'd be putting the ball in the box for Bamford and everyone else. So he's more of a box-to-box defense, like a standard left back. But if he can work on not giving that ball away as much, that'll do my heart wonders, I think.
That's fair. Do you have anything to add on to that, or do you agree with that, Nickson?
Totally agree. I just think that if we wait a few more weeks, we see the chemistry with the whole team build up. He'll learn his spot more. He'll learn where he slots in. He'll obviously getting on with the team's like a good thing. And you actually have to get to know the people you're playing with, get to know their playing style as well, get to know what they'll do in what sort of a situation and how to communicate where to pass. Because it's all well and good to just stick your hand up, but like these guys have played together for a long time. They know what they're doing. They know how to work well with each other.
Definitely.
So just give it a bit of time and he'll slot in perfectly, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. And just before I go into my two players, Phillips and Harrison, just want to go to Chris real quick and just want to know your opinion as to where this lot puts us in terms of our season and how it's setting up our season so far.
Yeah. I said this a lot last season, and it's even more true so this season. The games against teams like Liverpool, the games against teams like City, the games against teams like, unfortunately, Manchester United, they're not going to really show us where our season is or give us an appropriate benchmark in terms of how we've performed. You've got to remember that we've had one of the hardest starts of any Premier League team this season.
100%.
We had Manchester United for the first game of the season, who unfortunately will probably be title contenders or at least in the conversation for a top four spot. We actually played well against Everton. I would argue we played reasonably well against Burnley. And then we've just played the former European champions in Liverpool. It's a bit unfair for, the people to get on social media. The wheels are falling off. It's time for Bielsa to go. We've been found out, this and that. That's all nonsense. Newcastle United up next. They're struggling. They're probably got a bit of a relegation dogfight against them ahead of them this season. It's teams like that we will probably, be able to judge more on how our season's going to be. And it's only 4 games in.
Exactly.
Let's get to round 10 and then let's assess where we are. If we're losing to teams like Newcastle, maybe then you could make the argument that, maybe something's not right. Maybe something needs to change. Exactly. But a 3-0 loss against the former European champions doesn't really concern me all that much. No, in a few years' time, when our squad's been improved on and, when we're playing in Europe ourselves, hopefully, maybe then we can have this discussion. But at the moment, it's a moot
right now,
point.
We're not in their league.
You've also got to remember that Liverpool are a side that spending 60 million on a player doesn't really bother them. No, their bench alone is probably worth more than our entire squad's worth.
And then also our under 23 squad.
It was said against after the Manchester United game. Sorry, Paul Pogba from memory started on the bench. Yep. Now Paul Pogba's worth in the vicinity, I would argue, of about 70 or 80 million pounds.
Yep.
He was worth more on the bench than our entire bench itself was worth.
Yep.
And they could justify starting him on the bench because obviously they have better options. And it's a similar story with Liverpool.
Yep.
You know, it cheeses me off when you get on social media and you see people unfairly slagging the team off. You know, after results like this, you know, a bit of context goes a long way.
Especially after only 4 rounds.
Exactly.
If it was 25 rounds in and it was this sort of thing, absolutely.
Exactly.
You know? But it's 4 bloody rounds in, fuck off, is all
exactly.
I'm going to say.
Well,
and honestly, that's going to be the title of the episode. It's been 4 rounds in, fuck off. That's what I'm going to
what do you have to add to that, Jason?
Yeah, look, like you say, we had it's been a really tough start. I mean, you get the champion, you get, you know, Liverpool and Man United in the first 4 games, and even Everton, they're a side that every year that they've got expectations on them to finish top 6 as well. And
they'll be fighting for Europe this season. Well, they probably won't be fighting for the Champions League, but I would be very surprised if they weren't in the conference conversation at least.
Yeah, I mean, look, the only real game, I don't think we're in a position to turn up to any game and think we're going to get 3 points today.
Oh God,
that's the way it is. We're second year in the league. If you that start, obviously, when the fixture came out, you go, that's going to be a tough first 4 games up. Realistically, you'd hope for a point, 2 points from both of those games, but you look at it, and that's probably about right, to be honest with you. Apart from the dismal performance on match day 1 against the arch enemy, the rest of it's sort of taken as, aside from the Burnley game where ideally we want 3 points, that the rest sort of sits pretty fair at the moment. I think the only worry is, well, there's no worry. It's just I think if you give us another 6-7 games and we're still following that trend, then we might have cause for concern, but
absolutely.
not
but
right now.
Absolutely. Nickson, do you have anything to add to any of that?
I'll just add a nice conversation that I had. I rocked up to work, and of course someone reminds me, oh, look what happened to Leeds. And I was like, look, we've played the proverbial top of the table now. Look who we're playing for the next few weeks. We've just joined the league. Give us time. Like it's like breaking in a pair of Doc Martens. You can't just wear them and expect not to get blisters. You've got to at least get some wiggle. You've got to grow into it. And I think that's what we're going to do. We've got to scope things out this season and see how we go from there onwards. And Bielsa's got to scope it out too and figure out what the best plan of attack is in terms of, is he going to keep Bamford up the front or is he going to try different formations? I think he'll keep him up the front because I think he really likes it.
I think at least for the next 6 games at least, before we need to start, pulling the panic alarm, he'll keep that formation with how it is. And then if unfortunately shit doesn't go our way,
then he'll start mixing it up.
Mix it up, as in the formations, maybe. That's obviously barring injury, of course, to any of our players. Now, my Phillips-Harrison comparison, you could say. Basically, Phillips just come back from international duty. And honestly, you can't... What I saw of them and noticed of them, there was a lot of exciting opportunity early on in the game. The first 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes even from Phillips and Harrison. Harrison had a few, possible setups, just didn't obviously capitalize on it, but he didn't have an overly shit game either. And same with Phillips. He did have a few standing tackles go against him, but again, overall, not an absolutely shit game either. Not a great game, because a great game would be a win, let's be honest. But an average game overall. I don't think both of them contributed heavily to the loss. Do you guys have anything to add to that? We'll start with fucking eeny, meeny, miny, Jason.
I think in that, like you say, I think it's really hard to gauge when you're playing literally 3 of the top 6 teams in the first 4 games. The one thing I've noticed in our performance is that maybe a concern. I don't know how much to put it down to it being our performance or the teams we're playing against, but I found that press has not been as prominent as what that high press that Leeds have been renowned for since Bielsa has come in. That hasn't been as existent. Like I say, I don't know how much that has got to do with the fact that we're playing, higher end teams, or if it is a fatigue thing. I'm not sure. But on Calvin, I think Calvin's always Mr. Reliable, like you say. I mean,
he's Old Faithful.
Yeah, he put in a few nice tackles. I did like when Oxlade-Chamberlain came in and came on, and he tried taking on Calvin, and Calvin was like, "No, I'm not having any of that." And
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that we were 3-0 down, and that was one of my favorite parts of the game. So, yeah, like I say, he was okay. He was okay in an okay performance.
No, that's fair enough. And just before we go on to the Newcastle game preview, obviously, I mean, we could talk about the referee's performance, but I think we covered that. But Tyler's impact of coming off the bench, what are your guys' thoughts? We'll start with Chris on that. Because he's probably got a good opinion or bad opinion, just an opinion about it.
Tyler Roberts, for me, he had a serviceable game. I think we're all starting as Leeds fans, we're all starting to sort of get into that unhealthy mindset in where when Tyler Roberts eventually is substituted into the game, we all know that that's fairly much it.
Yep.
We're not really expecting overly much from him as you would expect from someone such as Rodrigo.
Damn,
I still don't know who it was that justified the £30 million for him, but we have not seen it yet.
Yep, agreed.
And we were expecting him to do a shift, and he just didn't. Then we bring Tyler Roberts in. All of a sudden, Tyler Roberts has a big game ahead of him. There's not much I can really say about Tyler Roberts' performance that I haven't said week in, week out. I don't think he's Premier League quality. I think he needs to go out back to the Championship, maybe get a season of full football, first team football under his belt, and then we'll reassess. But at the moment, I don't see what he adds to the team.
That's fair. Nickson, do you have anything to tack onto that?
Totally agree. I think this is my controversial opinion coming out again. Instead of subbing him on, sub on some of the younger guys like Shackleton and stuff like that, because they're fast. They're really, really, really fast. And Shackleton in particular is a great communicator. You notice, like I was speaking to someone, they're like, he's a great super sub. Yeah, I am. But he's a great super sub. He's really fast and agile. He knows what he's doing. He's young and up and coming, so he can only really get better. Unless he flops, but he won't. He can only really get better. He's still even getting to know the team, and he's playing really, really well. So give the young guys a run, let them play, let them rip in, especially if we're getting into that mindset where, okay, we'll bring Tyler Roberts on because we know we've dug ourselves a hole and about to jump in it. We may as well just be like, okay, well, we'll leave Roberts on the bench for a while and get some of the younger guys in. Give them a run. Try something new because we've got nothing to lose.
Yeah,
Chris, Jimmy Somerville a run. He's been on the bench for the last couple of games, and he's tearing it up in the under-23s. Yeah, the kid's apparently the Usain Bolt of the Premier League. They talk about him. He's that fast. Yeah. I'd love to see him get a run out, especially in a game with 10 minutes left that we're most likely not going to get anything out of.
Yeah, or if we're or the other end of it, if we're up like 3-0 with 10 minutes to go, you know,
some time.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on what Nickson had to say, Jason?
Yeah, just let the boys play. Just let them play.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think on Tyler Roberts, obviously, traditionally, he is probably one of the most frustrating footballers at Leeds. In that he does one good thing, and then the next thing
he does 5 bad things.
Gives it away, or he makes a beautiful tackle, gives the pass away, puts in a shift to press, gives the foul away, whatever it is, it's just not quite clicking for him. However, I do think in that Liverpool game, that was probably one of the better performances I've seen of him. He's passing, his movement, he was trying to create. He definitely offered a lot more than Rodrigo. Rodrigo in that first 10 minutes when he had that chance, Rodrigo in that first 10 minutes when he had the ball dead in the middle of the box. That's a training drill. You pick a corner and you put it into a corner. That's it.
Yep.
And instead he's just rocketed it at the keeper. I think when you talk about how much he's worth and he's worth 30 million, all the rest of it, that's when I look at that and I go, regardless of if you're struggling for form, when you get those chances, someone who's of your quality, just pick your corner. I know it's easier said than done.
Would have got that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Like
Exactly. So I don't know what's going on with him. I mean, I am really careful of. I don't like, putting my own team down. And I think people are very quick to. Fans are pretty fickle and quick to sort of ride a player when they're not doing so well. But definitely him in that position needs to put that away.
By the exact same token, though, Jason. I understand, especially at Leeds, there is an expectation on players to perform.
Yep.
But 30 million is a lot to spend.
Yeah,
and there was so much said about Rodrigo when he came to the club. He's this and he's that. He's Spain's number 9. I understand you've got to give the bloke time and you've got to give him this and that to gel. I understand all of that. But I mean, to put it into context, we paid Middlesbrough, what was it, £6 million for Paddy Bamford?
Or 13, I think.
It was something around that vicinity. I mean, I don't know.
Look, I mean, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you that he's frustrating, but I just and like I say, I think his performance is definitely out of par. I mean, I'd be patient with him. However, like I say in that Liverpool game, regardless of if we're being patient or not, he needs to be burying that chance in the middle of the box. No two which ways about it. So that's sort of for me.
Will your opinion be different if he keeps the lack of form after about 10 more match days?
Yeah,
Jason,
definitely.
You've got to be patient with him, though, because nobody's going to give us our money back for him.
Absolutely.
What do you think, Nickson, about Rodrigo?
I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think I'd echo Chris to an extent. Like, yes, 30 million's a lot of money, and yes, no one will take him back at this point. He's got to make an impression now if he wants to transfer. And if he wants to even stay on the main team, like with Leeds, I agree. I think he needs some time in the championship to sort of rediscover, like, either get his form back, rediscover his love of the game, just sort of be playing with a team where he gets more play time, where he's not on the bench, not subbed on. He starts on the field and he plays more of a dominant attacking role in the team. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's about
I agree with
that.
all of that. Honestly, all of your points have great merit towards that. Both Chris's and Nickson and Jason's. It's all, I reckon, I echo Chris's slightly in the sense of he's definitely not showing his worth right now, but I think be patient, and in about 10 or so weeks, if his form still hasn't picked up as much as it needs to, then it's time to ask the questions, really, sort of thing. And yeah, I absolutely agree with all of you combined. Now, bloody Newcastle coming up on Saturday, Australia time, Saturday bloody morning. Right. It's an away game for Leeds United. Let's go a bit of a preview. Chris, we'll start with you, mate.
Yeah. I hate to use the old cliche, but this game's looking like a bit of a 6-pointer. While we can talk about the difficult start to the season we've had and this and that, and they're all valid arguments, the fact of the matter is that we are now 4 games in and we are only on 2 points. So it is time to get moving, and I think Newcastle represents a fantastic opportunity to get our season moving in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Newcastle are very much in the same boat as us in the sense that they're also underperforming to a degree. They've had a slightly easier start to their season than us, but they've also failed to find form. So yeah, I very much think that it's a potential 6-pointer.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on that, Nickson? And how do you think we'll handle the game?
I think we'll handle it really, really well. I think, now we've played the top of the table. It's all good. Now we can relax a little bit. We can try a few new things as we're playing teams that are sort of more evenly suited to what sort of level of football we're playing at the moment. We can try a few different things. We can bring on some younger players. We can get more aggressive, and we can the more wins we get under the belt, it doesn't really matter against who, the more confident the team will get playing with each other, reading each other. They'll be more confident in matches going forward. So I really think that it's a pivotal game for us, and it's also pivotal for the fans.
Absolutely.
like get their head back in the game and just stop like sledging Bielsa. Because like you got to remember where he got us, and you got to remember what he did to Phillips. He turned him into a god.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you can sledge Bielsa all you want, but like, could you do any better?
Exactly.
No,
like
you got to give him time.
What he's brought us from and brought us to. Exactly.
Yeah,
you know?
like give the man time. He can do great things. Just here's our chance to like make an impression, and it's only sort of up, like onwards and upwards from here.
Absolutely.
And as Nick said with on Phillips, I've said it before. Before Bielsa came along, Phillips was an average championship player.
Mm-hmm.
Phillips is now arguably one of the best teams in the one of the best players, in the English national team.
Yep.
And Bielsa's largely to credit for that improvement. Phillips has said it himself. So we also need to remember where we've come from and the development that has happened under Bielsa before we start calling for the bloke's head after 4 fairly difficult games.
Absolutely. Jason, do you have anything to add to that? And what are your thoughts on how we'll go?
Yes, I mean, I agree with Chris. It's definitely an early season 6-pointer. And like I say, we are where we expected to be if we're being realistic. And yeah, I've actually convinced my dad to choose Leeds as he's doing a knockout competition of guaranteed wins. So I've told him to pick Leeds this week. So we have to win. And I think
win for Jason's dad.
Yeah, sorry, I just had to just drop that in there. And just on what Nickson said, I think we definitely will get a chance to see some of the younger players. And you mentioned, obviously, Nickson about Big Shaq. He's obviously a little energizer bunny, and he brings a lot of energy and composure to the team. So hopefully, I mean, we see him get a run. Hopefully, as well, I know we talked about Rodrigo, but on, I guess, a segue to Rafinha, I'd love Rafinha to be given Rodrigo's number 10 spot, and Rodrigo drop to a bench, and then see Daniel James get a start on Saturday morning. So I just think Rodrigo's, like we say, not offering as much, and I think Rafinha, just getting the last game against Liverpool, obviously, he did as much as he could, but a lot of his work was defensive running, and he wasn't able to sort of be involved as much as what we like him to be. But long story short, lots of goals, hopefully 3 points, and then we're off. We're back in business again.
Absolutely. And I don't really have much to add to that because I absolutely agree. But let's go with scoreline predictions. We'll start with Nickson. What is your score prediction, and who's going to be first goal scorer?
Oh, I always lose my first goal scorer multis. I reckon 3-1 Leeds, and I'd like to see either an Ayling or a Harrison first goal.
I was going to say, I reckon Ayling, yeah.
Like personally, an Ayling or a Harrison would be perfect.
Mm-hmm. And realistically.
What about you? Like, I'm never really good at picking things, especially when it comes to multis, because I always throw them.
Yeah, Phil, I mean, this isn't for multis. This is just for funsies. So for me, it would be 4-2 or 4-1 Leeds way. First goal scorer will actually, I unfortunately think, be Newcastle. Will be the first goal scoring team. I don't
say that. Don't say that.
Hey, I hope I'm wrong.
So imagine that early cracker from Ayling, just bang in the corner.
I was going to say,
hair out, just running down.
But if Leeds do score first, it will definitely be Ayling, and he will definitely do that run with the hair out. Absolutely.
And if it was the ref from last week, he'd be sent off for taking his hair out, knowing the ref. Just saying.
And breaking his hairband.
Yeah.
Yep. Jason, mate, scoreline prediction and first goal scorer.
Look, I mean, I'm going to go a little bit more conservative, and I'm going to say Paddy Bamford first goal, and hopefully 3-1.
Will it be a good striker or a sitter typical?
It'll be a striker's dodgy tapping.
Yep. And what will be the scoreline?
3-1.
3-1.
Yeah.
Okay.
And fingers crossed we score first, because my heart can't deal if we concede early again.
Right. And crossing over to Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah. I think given the start to the season we've had and the belting against Liverpool, I think Bielsa will be in one of those moods to get us to try and turn it on, so to speak, as he's done plenty of times throughout his tenure. I think, as I said before, Newcastle represent a great opportunity to maybe potentially have a bit of fun.
Yep.
I don't think it'll be 3-0. I would love to see us bang in 3, but I think 2-0 is probably a more realistic scoreline. The first goal will probably be Bamford. I agree with what Jason said. It'll be a dodgy tap-in, more than likely across from Rafinha or across from Ayling or someone like that. And I'd like to see Rafinha get his name back into the scorers, or possibly Dan James coming on from the bench.
Fair enough. Honestly, that'd be great to see. Honestly, what would be great is if all of those names could score in that one game. Let's be honest, that would be great. Yeah, well, I guess the only thing left is to leave it up to the football gods, and everyone tune into this podcast next week to see if our predictions are right and if any aren't right, and if we have to eat all of our words. So on behalf of the Leeds United News and Views podcast, first of all, thank you, Nickson, for joining as a new co-host, and I enjoyed it. You're definitely going to be.
And we play all the way for Leeds United.